is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for this evening's meeting was circulated in advance. I do have two additions to propose, one which would be the addition of item 11G, which is the appointment of bylaw enforcement officers, and item number 12, which is public comments and statements. This would make the closed session item number 13 and the adjournment item number 14. Are there any other proposed additions or changes to the agenda? There being none, do all councillors consent to the addition of the items to this agenda?
Yes.
There being no opposition, I'll accept a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. So moved by Councillor Elderkin, seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Any conflicts of interest to declare in relation to the agenda items for this evening? There being none, we'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes. We have the following minutes to approve this evening. Those of the regular meeting on February 6th, 2024, and the committee of the whole meeting on February 20th, 2024. The draft minutes of the regular meeting on February 6th were circulated in advance of this meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? There being none, I will accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Land, seconded by Councillor Coates. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. The draft minutes of the committee of the whole meeting on February 20th, 2024 were circulated in advance of this meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? There being none, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councillor Elderkin, seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. Number 5 on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items for this evening's meeting. Item number 6, public and administrative presentations. There is one public presentation scheduled for this evening, that being a presentation by Ms. Joanne Butlin of the Chipota Communities Revitalization Committee and Mr. Aaron Tavender of the ATV Federation. In accordance with our procedural bylaw, presentations are limited to 5 minutes in length, so I would ask our presenters to respect that, and I do believe we have a 2-minute presentation shortly thereafter. So, Mrs. Button, you have the floor, so
All right.
please proceed.
No, so I hopefully won't get off track too bad. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, fellow community members. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Joanne Butlin. I live here in the village of Riverside, Alberta. I am currently on the board of the Chipota Communities Revitalization Committee, and I am also a member of the Alberta County Trailblazers. With me tonight is Aaron Tavender, who is on the board of directors for Quad NB. He's also our representative here for Region 8. And the other two gentlemen are David Knickel. He's the president of the Alberta County Trailblazers. And I have a hard time with your last name. And Donnie DeHater?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, he's the vice president. So many of the council were at our public presentation in January at the Curling Club, and I would like to personally thank you for attending that. It was well attended, so that's why we're here tonight, because the community told us, yeah, we want it. So the CCRC and the Alberta County Trailblazers are working together to expand the club's trail system. It will join our 3 communities and provide the option to link with other clubs. ATV tourism is one of the largest growing sectors in the tourism industry, and presently we have no sanctioned trails in our area. When you look at the maps that I provided in the briefing, the lower portion of Alberta County is the dark pole as far as an ATV user. Although trails do exist in our area, none are sanctioned, which means they're not signed, they're not maintained, and they're not mapped for ATV users to navigate. Unfortunately, this leaves our region at a large disadvantage compared to other areas of the province as an ATV destination. Despite being one of the top tourism destinations in the province, our vehicle traffic, despite being one of the top tourism destinations in the province for vehicle traffic, we are one of the lowest destinations for ATV traffic. We see very little of the $60 million estimated to be the regional yearly impact from ATVs. The provincial impact from ATV users is estimated at $458 million. We all know that by developing this trail from Hillsborough to Alma and west to the park exit at Wolf Lake, we'll see a much higher volume of ATV users, which will provide a large financial boost to our local economy. These are some stats that I got from Quad NB. The Albert County Trailblazers has over 1,500 members in 2022. Region 8, which is down all the way to St. John, had 5,400 members. The last report that we received from the province of New Brunswick told us that there was 58,000 quads registered in the province of New Brunswick. Quad NB statistics state that 75% of their members are between the ages of 45 and 65, with an estimated average yearly income of $85,000 a year. This demographic has more money and more time than any other tourism sector that we are currently targeting. In order for this trail to be a success and our communities enjoy the economic impacts that can be provided, we will need more road access than currently exists. ATV users want and need access to restaurants, accommodations, gas, groceries, etc. Our purpose here this evening is to ask the council to begin working with us to help determine what road access is required, as well as what is prudent to make this project a success and benefit to all our communities and LSDs. My ask tonight is for the Village of Fundy Albert Council to introduce a motion to support and proceed amending the existing road access bylaw in Hillsborough to allow for the expansion of road access there, as well as establish road access in the former municipalities of Riverside, Albert, and Alma, so that ATVs can have legal access to local businesses and resources. I would like to thank you for your time here this evening and offer to answer any questions you may have, or pick one of these guys that know more than I do about the system.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You still have a little bit of time left, but the questions and answers don't count as part of that.
Okay.
So I'll start with Mrs. Elderkin. So
No, I have no
Councillor Elderkin.
questions. Thank you very much for coming to do a presentation. We enjoyed your presentation and it was very well supported at the Girl Club. And for me personally, I look forward to working with this. It's a benefit to all of Fundy Alberts.
Thank you. Councillor Land, any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Thanks so much for coming, your support. Anything I can do to help, this will bring money into our area, big revenue. And it is a big demographic. We've seen that in Fredericton and some of the meetings up there at UMFE. And there's a lot of money there to be had, so we need to tap into. Very supportive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arrow.
Thank you. I know from the session that I attended at the Kerning Club there and conversations with quite a few people, that the subject of the road access for the ATVs is important. And you mentioned again, I think we're virtually unanimous probably on the council to support that. And what I would suggest is that we get the bylaw. There's only the one bylaw that currently existed, I think, in Fundy Albert, which was the Hillsborough one, that your group and our administration work quickly.
Yes.
You know, with determination to review that bylaw, propose the amendments that you're looking for the other two communities and the LSD areas, because all of our bylaws that previously existed in the former municipalities are, as the need arises, they are being redone as Fundy Albert bylaws that will apply to the entire community. So this, to me, seems like a good one to get near the top of the list.
Okay.
We've got the Hillsborough one as a model. It may need some refinement. Add the new bits. Let's get her done.
Okay, that would be amazing. Now, as far as access, we have some ideas of what we want. If you see my map, we've kind of cherry picked the trail that we have, and that trail is not, it's not confirmed. We have to get landowner permissions everywhere we go. So that's our wish list. We may have to veer off that trail a little bit, but that's our intention, is to join the 3 municipalities and take it to the west end of Fundy Park. And we've always had temporary, or meetings with Fundy Park, and we have the application to apply for the permits to get us to the end of Fundy Parks, which will join us to Sussex. It's big numbers.
Thank you.
So
Oh, sorry.
somebody will tell us what you want from us.
So
Just
I'll
along.
clarify that. Great. Is that it, Councillor Errol?
That's it.
Councillor Jonah?
First, I want to apologize for not being at your meeting. I had previous commitment. But I will say that, full support any initiative that help businesses and fund the Albert, I'm good with. So you have my full support.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Coates?
Joanne,
Yes.
I've been involved in tourism in Albert County for 20 years or so. It's a great thing. We've got a hidden gem in Albert County and, we've got to promote it. So we will work with you as good as we can and, hope that we can get your, trails to get to Alma and Hillsborough and Caledonia Mountain or wherever. Oh,
It's a big project.
it is.
It's gonna take,
It's
it's not
gonna
gonna
take
come overnight.
a lot of time and, just one question, I presume Quad New Brunswick has, landowners, they're protected, if there's accidents on, I know the snowmobile does. Is that,
When the landowner signs an agreement with the club and Quad NB, they actually then fall under Quad NB's insurance.
Yep.
So if something happens by an ATVer on their property, they're at risk. I mean, there's still always the exception to someone trespassing, but they're trespassing at the end of the day. But yes, the landowner will be way more protected now
Yep.
than what is actually happening with people traveling on the property with no lease agreement.
okay, I thought it was, but I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coates. From my perspective, I mean, I'm a member of the Albert County Trailblazers as well. I'm an avid ATVer, winter and summer. I'd love nothing better than to see the trail. Having said that, we cannot provide you a response tonight. But this needs to be debated amongst council and decided, although I see a sense that there's a willingness to go forward. And obviously to work with a group, so whether that's a couple of counselors assigned to work with your group to find out what accesses you're looking for. It's fine for you it's fine to know that eventually you want to see a trail from Hillsborough, say to Alma, to be able to access Alma, but where your entry point is, what roads would you need access to? What, like, are you looking for, and I suspect I know the answer, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Are you looking for the ability to drive up Main Street in Hillsborough? Are you looking for, what streets are you looking to access in the community of Riverside, Albert and Alma and so on? That brings in not a complication, but rather perhaps an obligation for us to consult with the community to make sure that it's explained so that they understand what the purpose is, that we're not just opening the doors to mayhem, right? So we need to explain that to the public. So there's some things that need to be done, but they can be done in preparation for all the work that you're going to do to establish that trail system. So I think we do have what we call committee of the whole meetings, where we can have more in-depth conversations around those types of things, where we'll decide whether it's a good thing or not, and I suspect I know the answer already. And then secondly, we can talk about maybe assigning a couple of counselors to work with you to formalize what you're looking for. And then, of course, there's the possibility of reaching out to Quad NB just in terms of the highway use permissions and so on. So I am somewhat familiar with the process, having spoken with Mr. Knickel. So that's pretty much where it's going. But I thank you very much for the informative presentation, not only here, but the one that you did over at the Curling Club, and for the in-depth report that you forwarded to council for their consideration and preparation for that.
Perfect. If you've got any questions, you got my number.
All right, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
So that pretty much wraps up our 5-minute presentations. We do have one registered 2-minute presentation, and that's Mrs. Carrie Howard, and the subject is follow-up, although I suspect it's a follow-up to your presentation on glyphosate. So just move over to there, and you have 2 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks for having me again. I just wanted to stop in to see if there was any questions about the information, but also to illustrate what a perfect time this would be right now for the water testing and ask for possibly a motion to move forward with the water testing. I did forward that email onto the CAO of the specific water test that Dr. Marrero has been asking for the communities to perform. And that's really all I have. I just, with all the rain and the melt, it's just all the things we talked about happened over this last week, and wonder if possible, if calling PRC and seeing if these tests are available and if they're possible to perform, and then really considering doing them just to bring some peace of mind and see if the level of glyphosate has changed since our last, same, and if the theories are possibly true.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, just a second.
Yeah.
Councillor Elderkin, any questions?
No, thank you, Larry.
Councillor Land?
No, thanks. Thank you very much.
Councillor Arrow?
No, I'm actually supportive of, especially for, I think, Riverside Albert, which is the water source that is most directly impacted by rain events like this. And it seems to me, even intuitively, it makes sense, like we had heard before, that testing after major rain events was a good thing. We've had a major rain event. I'd be supportive of, if nothing else, there's obviously more other tests that possibly could be done in addition to the glyphosate test, but we had the one benchmark from, I can't remember when it was, I think it was in the fall now that we did it. I'm supportive of doing it toot sweet right away, again, to see. It seems like a good time.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Jonah?
I'm going to agree with Councilor Earl. Riverside Albert seems to be the epicenter where things are happening with this strange disease in our area anyway. Maybe it is time to, if not all wells, definitely the Riverside Albert area. I can just support that.
Okay, Councillor Coates?
Water is one of our gems of Canada, and we've got to protect it the best we can. Thank you for your presentation.
So since you presented at our committee of the whole meeting, I believe was the
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
this was the committee of the whole. We typically do not make decisions based on presentations, and same would apply for tonight. This is something that I would, and although this would be an opportunity for someone to make a motion, if they so desire, I would urge council to give that a lot of thought before you make a decision, and that there be some discussion around the need for it, and B, the costs associated with it, because those tests are not cheap. And I'm not trying to minimize the impact on the folks who are concerned about glyphosate. It's just that, if we go down that road without making sure that the information supports the additional testing, then
Are you concerned about glyphosate?
of course I am.
Yeah. No,
Like anyone.
and I just, right now too, there's a lot more research starting now about the long-term effects, only because we're using more and more, even here in, in the softwood industry. They've begun using more over the last decade or so. So it's just, yes, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in our grain, it's in our Cheerios. But do we just say, oh, okay. Anyways.
Yeah, so anyway, like I said,
Yep,
typically don't make decisions
Yep,
at,
I just was here to,
just to
sure.
follow up. Yeah, and I had it as an item for
For your-
discussion
Yeah,
at the committee of the whole in 2 weeks' time on the 19th.
Yep.
And I would suggest that council wait until then. But it's anyone's prerogative to advance a motion if they so desire.
if not tonight, I would encourage that we wait for another event such as this to test our theory, you know, after a rain event, like if it's not this rain event, to write that into the motion, that, you know, that after a new melt or a huge, I'm asking of 10+ millimeters of rain, you know, just a nice.
Mhm.
What's your belief is the time frame after the event?
Just from the one patient who I've been given access to the information and it was reiterated this past week. It's 4 or 5 days after the rain starts or the melt starts to 7 days. Like it kind of makes sense when you think of a rain event and how our lands are just. Again, there are patients in northern New Brunswick. I would actually love to maybe have someone else come to present a bigger piece of that data because they did a quick study or a quick survey of where the patients were and zone 1, health zone 1, which is us, is the highest. Now, that's just a small number of the 340 or 50 patients, but it would be interesting to see if that's shared. Anecdotally, 20+ more anecdotally agree patients.
Thank you.
I'll put anecdote.
Nope, thank you. So my suggestion would be to discuss it further in detail at the committee of the whole, but it is entirely someone's prerogative to make a motion if they so desire. And then it's open for debate. So we will wait. Thank you.
Yeah.
It'll be on the agenda on March 19th. Well, thank you very much. Item number 7 on the agenda, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings. There are none. Item number 8, reports from administration. So Councillor Arrow had asked for a report on generators, and that was circulated. I don't know, CAO, if you would like to just touch on.
I do not have anything further to add than what was in the report. It was in response to questions of what the generator scope of work was for the Alma Warming Center. And I believe I captured everything that I possibly could in that document, and I can just open it up for questions.
Any questions, Councillor Elderkin?
No question.
Councillor Land, any questions?
I do. The size of your generator, is it gonna run the complete building?
No.
Just part
Just the warming center only. So for Alma, it'll be the activity center part at the top
with the
with
kitchen?
the washrooms in the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's everything.
So not the incubator spaces downstairs and not the house.
Okay.
The
Is-
goal was to use the ACOA grant to get the generator that we needed in order to run a warming center and not really as a the whole building.
Okay. Is it 3-phase, single phase? Not
That
sure.
I'd have to go back to single phase. I think it was, yeah,
In the quote?
yeah. The quotes were attached in the document.
Yeah, no, I seen that. Okay. And we only have one quote is we discussed things around this table, having 3 quotes.
Well, that was on December 5th. We put the procurement policy in place and all of this was done before the
And
procurement.
there was a timing issue
And there was a timing issue.
because we became aware and there was like 5 days to get things together, I believe, or less than that. But we there was some sense of urgency, otherwise we lost out on the opportunity to apply for a grant fund.
But yes, moving forward, we are getting quotes for everything, getting 3 quotes.
So all the information in here that will finish the activity center up to snuff, get it running and,
We are just waiting for the quotes to install the propane.
okay, yeah. that
I
was
put
it.
an estimate in there for those. And the heat pump, I believe there was one estimate in there. We're getting more quotes on that.
Okay,
Perfect.
that's all. I want.
Okay, Councillor Coates, any questions?
Good.
Okay, Councillor Jonah, any questions?
I don't understand how power works, but I know these are single phase generators and I also know the Quantis is a 3-phase building. How does that work?
That I will have to get back to you on. I do not know.
Yeah,
It was the electrician that was making the recommendations for the generator, so I was assuming, while they were there, they were doing the assessment, so I was, the quotes were going on what their assessment was, but I can certainly ask, those questions. For the coroner's.
All right. Councillor Arrow,
I have
questions?
a few questions, but thank you for the report, Linda, it was good. That's what I was looking for by and large. Like I see out, for instance, this building, the generator is just at the corner of the building,
Mhm.
and we see the propane tank there. How, does anybody know how long this propane tank will supply the generator operating at pretty much full load? It's like, how long is our fuel source able to supply the operation here? That's one question, but for the new systems now, I noticed that you're still working on the quotes for the propane tank installation part of it.
Well, we already have propane at the activity center. We just want to make sure that it's enough, or if we need an additional tank or what.
Okay,
So
there's already propane
there
there.
already is propane there for the kitchen.
Okay, because I think as we're doing this, we should be asking ourselves, how long is this fuel reservoir good? Assuming that somehow we're cut off for some period of time, what is the fuel source in terms of time? That I'm curious to know.
The only thing I can comment on that, councillor, is that when we had the prolonged power outage in February of last year, what I do know is that the propane tanks here are on automatic fill-up. So the propane company was dropping by quite regularly to
If they
check.
can get here, yeah.
Yeah, so, but my understanding, it was like several days, and even after 4 days, I don't think they ran out of propane.
That's good. That'd be interesting to know that. I think
I was gonna make a guess that, and I know in a 2-bedroom house, it goes for 3 days on one tank, so it would be, I think, similar to those lines. I would say probably around 2 days, but that is just my guesstimate, so I will find out for you.
I see also that part of the work we're doing in Alma is the installation of the mini split as a heat source for the facility. Is that because the baseboard will not be supplied at all? So is it the one mini split, or?
It's because of the age of the baseboard heaters in that facility. They're too old. The generator won't support them.
So is
So
this,
those will be removed and the heat pump would be the source.
and this heat pump is sufficient for that space? Okay. That's good. So it looks like, is the work all supposed to be done by the end of March, and
Yeah.
so this will be
Positive.
very positive. And the only other thing I would say is we need to make sure that we get into our asset management plan the continuous operation testing of these facilities going forward. Because hard lessons have already been learned in terms of not doing that, and when you really finally need them, they're not serviceable, and we can't afford to make that mistake for this and all of our other generators that we have in operating in critical infrastructure like the water systems.
That is a priority with the administration right now,
Yeah,
is to
I
be
know.
able to be
Yeah.
more proactive
Yeah.
as opposed to reactive.
So it's good. It'll be a thing to announce to the community as you could say, a win for our fairly new municipal government, if we can show that we have something in place that we didn't before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I don't have any questions. Like Councilor Arrow, I'm pleased to see that we're making some progress, and that in a matter of weeks, we're gonna have 3 emergency warming centers that we can rely on. So that's very positive.
I should
Yes.
note as well. Councillor Coates had also brought up a warming center possibility in one of the LSDs, and I am still going to explore that option. It's on my list. I apologize, I haven't got to it yet.
The Snowmobile Association.
And was it the Snowmobile Association?
The
Yeah.
clubhouse.
Yeah.
You brought up. The
Snowmobile
clubhouse.
Clubhouse?
Yeah, I haven't, I wanted to get, I'll send you I wanted a copy of what the, agreement is with Qantas on it, type of thing. And, yeah, it was brought up to me that they would offer it, by the secretary of the snowmobile club, that, it would, because Caledonia Mountain is the last of on the line of the power coming right from Dawson, okay? And so Dawson gets it, and they get it, and it just in stages. So this is a long thing. Generally, if it's 4 days and getting it fixed there, it's generally 7 days before you get it in Caledonia Mountain, so. And there is, I know some elderly people up there.
So I'll get that agreement then, and then we can connect and
Yeah.
discuss it.
I'll get you.
Okay, thank you. Item 8B, which is council committee assignments. This is just an information item. So the Village of Fundy Albert proceedings of council and committee meetings, which is in our procedural bylaw, requires the council appoint members of council on an annual basis to various committees. In February 2023, council created the following committees: the Bylaws and Policy Committee, Finance, Culture and Recreation, Seniors Advisory Committee, Land Use Planning, Public Works, Emergency Measures, and Personnel. There were varying degrees of success and involvement by council on these committees in 2023. Going into 2024, council should A, determine whether all or some of these committees are necessary, and B, determine which councillors are to serve on the committees. So I would ask you all, and that'll include Councillor Ward Russell, who isn't here with us this evening, to give this matter your consideration, to be prepared to discuss it at length at the committee of the whole meeting on March 19th. We need to sort things out to determine what number of committees we're going to have and who's going to be on them, who wants to volunteer to be on those committees. So on the 19th, please be prepared to have that conversation. That's all I have. It's just an information item. Item number 9 on the agenda, bylaws. There are no bylaws to present this evening. Item number 10 is mayor and councillor statements and inquiries. Councillor Arrow, if you would like, please go ahead.
Yeah, the only one I will make mention of is, as I've received, as the councillors know, I've received a regular update from Fundy National Park, alerting us to what's happening there, and eventually we're going to be able to get those. Are they already on the Facebook page, a link to it?
We do follow them, so whatever they post on Facebook would show up on our Facebook feed.
Yes, I don't know if this actually got put there on their site, but there's just a very few things I'd just like to highlight to the OWL and our audience. There is that the golf course opens on May 17. Pool opens on June 21. They've got a big summer and spring and year really of lots of activities. Some campgrounds are already open. Many are opening in May, some more in June. The website for reservations is already open, and lots going on there. And other than that, I don't have anything to report.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jonah.
I have previously brought to the table concerning a monument and plaque for the gentleman that was killed, the power gentleman.
Correct, at our last meeting.
At our last meeting. And it was originally planned on putting it at the fire hall. The monument, what the monument was going to be is actually a hydro pole about 4 or 5 feet tall with a plaque dedicated to the gentleman on it. But looking at the land that where the fire hall is, there's really no spot there to put it. There's just no land other than what the building's sitting on. So I talked to Troy Collins about it, and he made the suggestion of putting it down at the Peace Park, which I threw by a few people in the community, and they thought that would be a fantastic spot for something like that. So I just want to bring that back, see council's thought, see, we'd have to figure out exactly where something like that would go. I know a couple of years ago that the Legion planted a tree on behalf of a gentleman. I can't remember exactly what that's why I might remember, but I don't remember who it was or what it was for. But there has been something placed there previously in commemorative for somebody else. So just bring that up there and see what your thoughts are.
Okay. My initial thoughts are, it's great that, that initiative is going on, and in hindsight, after you having mentioned that, I'm just wondering, I believe there was probably some involvement from the other fire brigades as well that weekend. So I'm just wondering, has Chief Collins had a conversation with Chief Osmond or the other chief?
Not to my knowledge. So
I would recommend that they do that
Okay.
to make sure that they're not left out of the equation on that. And that they're involved in the process in terms of, and they're okay with any location for the erection of a monument.
My understanding is Emmy Power actually came to Chief Collins, that they approached him.
That's fine, but there may be an opportunity for
Okay.
Chief Collins to talk to the other two
Okay.
so that we don't alienate. I mean, I believe they were all involved in the response to that particular incident, so we need to maybe talk to.
I will talk to Troy about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and that's it.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions for Councillor Jonah? No? Councillor Coates?
The only statement I got is the EMO committee on February the 29th, had 3 meetings, and I think we handled it very professionally that day. We could have been in a lot worse if the 114 would have been out. Unfortunate that it didn't, but we all worked together and put our heads together and things come together. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Elderton.
Yep, just a couple of things. I had an opportunity to meet with Shelley McNaught, coordinator of Nursing Homes Without Walls. Nursing Home Without Walls is a new program being offered through Forestdale Home. Nursing Home Without Walls program supports seniors wanting to remain in their own homes but require assistance to access services or opportunities for healthy aging. This program helps seniors 60 years of age and older that currently need assistance or help to have a plan to age in place. They partner with families, primary caregivers, and are looking for partnerships with existing senior groups. Staying involved with the community, they will encourage seniors to participate in walking programs, coffee houses, exercises, visits, bingo, etc. Transportation can also be arranged for them for various appointments. This program is being offered throughout all of Fundy, Albert, and for more information, you can contact Shelley McNaught at 506-269-3427 or attend the first information session on March 14th at 6:30 p.m. at Forestdale Home. I am requesting that my fellow councillors share this program throughout your wards. I did give you a copy of the brochure tonight, so I do have a couple extras here. It's a very popular thing in Port Elgin. So it's a new initiative here that the provincial government's doing in our region, so it's very exciting. As I've mentioned on numerous occasions, there are many volunteers that support the community of Fundy, Albert. I would like to bring to your attention an online bingo program that happens in the winter months by Kathy Tower. Each week, she hosts an online bingo program and identifies in advance which community project will benefit from it. In total, she has provided $25,000 to various projects within the community of Fundy, Albert. It's just a live Facebook thing. You reach out to Kathy, she'll send you a card and it's all live. It's $20. She's supported things all throughout Fundy, Albert for different fundraising initiative things for kids. So that's really quite good. And I just had a conversation and somebody didn't know about it. And I'm like, well, maybe we should make it aware because it is a benefit to everybody. So if you're interested in playing, please just reach out to her for the details. The Harvey Dam has had a mechanical malfunction and it has caused some unnecessarily flooding along the riverfront. After a conversation with the CAO mayor and deputy mayor, The CAO had followed up and they advised us of a short-term personnel coverage until it gets fixed. I'm just following up to see if we've heard anything more about the malfunction, or the gentleman, did he ever call you back?
So, just that the solution was they had a second person,
Right.
there was gonna be two of them, and that's the case for now. We are, I believe that's gonna be some of, your statement, but we are still, in the process of assessing any damage that was done as a result of the flooding that happened on Thursday and Friday. And, we're gonna reach out to all parties and have a plan in place and see what backups are in place, to prepare for the next event when it happens.
And I agree, your EMO committee, my other statement I had here was I understand that you guys did meet numerous times. For me personally, and I realized that once I made you guys aware of the issues in Riverside, that probably I did not know until I seen it on Facebook that there was issues within Fundy Albert. So for me, I think just an email to say this is what's happening. These are where our issues are in Fundy Albert, so that if something happens and we get called to a meeting, at least we know what they're about. I know there's nothing we can do, and I
Yeah.
expect the EMO committee will do what's right, but, no, I don't know if anybody knew we had problems here until I brought it to your attention, but I think that communication piece might have been a little missed there, but, so just for future, thank you, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Land.
I echo our sentiments on the acknowledgement of what's happening around the council, around the communities. When there's EMO meetings going on, we don't know what's going on, just an information thing for us. And also the culvert on the golf club road is washed out. Is there any update on that? I've seen a little bit of literature going by. I'm just looking for some information of where we're going forward with that, because if Route 114 has issues, down Lonely Mountain's a new road down country.
I'll have an
That's a
update.
long haul.
I have an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here's my update. So last week I received a call from one of the organizers of the Hillbilly ATV Run. And although it sounds like it's the hillbilly type thing, it really isn't. There's a group of people that organize this Hillbilly Run annually, and they donate a lot of money to local area charities from the funds that they raise. The organizer and I had a good conversation during which I was asked about council's view of them holding an outdoor concert in the quarry area of Nicholas Drive, just west of the Hillsborough Pump House, this coming Hillbilly Run, which I believe, I'm not 100% sure when the date is, but it's usually end of May, early June. And I plan to go by myself, so. They would like to bring in a flatbed trailer and have a band that would play from 7 PM to 9 PM. They would be on village lands, not on the road. There would be a canteen, porta potties, and garbage cans on site. The entire site would be prepared by the organizing committee, in fact, bringing in machinery to make sure that it's level and safe for all the attendees. And they would make sure that the area is cleaned up afterwards. What I do know is that the organizers, and I know this from firsthand experience, is there are people like who go out ATVing and leave a lot of garbage around. But this group, the organizing committee, goes up afterward and they clean everything up. Like, they do an impeccable job doing it. Their concern, of course, is that I was asked to have an answer for them before tonight, and I said it's impossible. So what are council's views on it? The only kind of issue is it would be on village property. And also it's within the well area. So does anybody have any concerns or?
Do you need a motion for a conversation or?
Not necessarily, just, if there are any concerns, then you can give it some thought, but need to convey your thoughts to me by the next council meeting. Otherwise, I'll reach out to the individual and inform him that I have had the conversation with council. My initial reaction was, well, if it's going to be at the location that you're talking about, there are houses nearby. And he said that it would start at 7 and it would end at 9, no later. So it could be a requirement for them to canvass the area houses and make sure that they're aware of what they are doing and that it will be done and over with by 9 o'clock. So just something that just out of my mind, because I used to live
Near
not
the
far
White
from.
Rock area.
It's, no, it's just we have our well house, which is at the end of Nicholas Drive. And it's, most of us consider that the quarry road. And it goes all the way down and then reconnects with the new road that's heading out towards Albert Mines. So it's kind of a loop. Pardon me?
It's right by Ronnie Pond.
Quite at the other end of it, there's kind of at the end towards the woods as well.
Legality wise,
Pardon me?
legality wise, somebody gets hurt.
Well, that would be whether there's any liability on the municipality if we do that, or do they have an insurance policy
Okay,
themselves?
that's one question I would ask.
Yeah.
And also, the residents in the area, they would have to be notified. You know, because there's gonna be, usually outdoor farms could be fairly light.
Yep. And I'm just kind of dropping this on council right now, so I'll give our CAO an opportunity to give it some thought, and maybe she might come up with some other implications or considerations that we should be mindful of, and to bring that. I did tell the individual that I probably would not be able to give a firm answer tonight.
I will say I have worked with this group before and they were very, very professional.
Yeah, sorry. Was there somebody else had a question?
Yeah, how do you, and I know where Nicholas Drive is, and I know Brunswick Limestone's this way, and you're saying it's this way.
Yes.
From the water tower.
Right.
In the back.
So what's the access point there? Is
It
it
would-
Nicholas
It would
Drive?
be Nicholas Drive, and it reconnects down on the golf club road,
Right.
new road
So you
extension.
come and then down.
You can go the loop, you can do the entire loop.
Right.
And it would be at the end of the day's activities. So it's kind of a wind up type thing, and then people would leave from there. Most of them would have their ATVs and their trailers would be parked by the golf course itself.
Okay, that's usually where they begin and start. Okay, thank you.
I'm supportive myself as long as the proper controls are in place.
Yep. Councillor Jones, did you have any other comments?
No, I'm supportive. This.
Okay, I'll reach out to the organizer who reached out to me, and I'll just say, listen, we're gonna be able to, right now, here are a couple of concerns, there may be others, but we will reach out to them once we've had a better opportunity to give it due consideration. Okay, Councillor Coates?
Anything I've heard of the Hillbilly Run, it's well taken care of, like, and, well, they police themselves. So. Been over many different stops and never heard any real negative. I would be in favor.
And in my conversation with the organizer, he did say that he has people sign document that indicates that it is a dry run. It is not supposed to be, there's not supposed to be alcohol, but he says, I can't control what people do, but they make sure that they do the entire route afterwards and they clean up just to make sure that there's no garbage left behind and no evidence of the fact that they held a run other than likely tire tracks. Okay, so I'll reach out and we'll bring that back, or an opportunity at the committee of the whole meeting if anybody has any concerns to raise them at that point. All right. Next is I would like to briefly speak about the February 29th rain event. On Thursday morning, our CAO partially activated our emergency measures organization to the active monitoring phase. The CAO contacted committee members and our volunteer emergency measures coordinator. 3 virtual meetings were held throughout Thursday with the status of Route 114 by Graybrook and Hillsborough, as well as other locations were being monitored for flooding. The flooding at Graybrook on Route 114 in the community of Hillsborough was at risk of closing the highway. There was also a partial culvert collapse at Graybrook on the Golf Club Road in Hillsborough, flooding in Riverside, Albert on Water Street, and flooding in Germantown on Route 114. Some concerns were expressed about the management of the gates at the Harvey Dam, which resulted in some flooding of homes and businesses in Riverside, Albert. Follow-up will include conversations with the managers of the Harvey Dam facility, so there's got to be some follow-up. And with DTI as it relates to the situation with the culvert on the Golf Club Road. The replacement or repair of this culvert will no doubt be very costly. For now, the road has been closed to through traffic. The current closure will have minimal impact on residents and businesses in the area. That said, it's still an important piece of road. A meeting with our MLA has been requested, and I was also contacted by the candidate for the PC for the upcoming PC election for the riding of Albert, as that individual had heard my interview on CBC Radio this morning. I had an interview at 6:30 this morning with CBC Radio. The province of New Brunswick website also invites residents and others to report any damage resulting from this event. The situation will result in an assessment of the damage to see if disaster relief funding is available. Disaster relief funding only gets triggered if there is a threshold that's met for a total of damage. So what they are urging is any folks with any damage resulting from this event, that they file their damage either online or by calling the number that's on the website. I provided the website to the CAO to be posted on our social media site and on our website. And we urge any residents who have suffered any damage to file a claim so that they know, and to keep receipts of any expenses that they incur, either cleaning up or getting back to normal business. I'd like to thank our CAO, our Volunteer Emergency Measures Coordinator, Jim Lindsay, Councillor Coates and Arrow for their availability on February 29th. I take your, not criticism, but constructive criticism at heart, because I think it's good. We learn from these events and we need to do a better job communicating. So that's important. I'd also like to thank Councillor Elderkin for responding to concerns about flooding in Riverside, Albert, and for passing those along to our CAO. Lastly, I'd like to thank our Public Works Department for their work monitoring developments in the community, responding to matters that needed to be attended to, for DTI for their work responded to queries and complaints about issues on Route 114, and to our 3 fire chiefs for their engagement during that day to ensure the ability to respond to fire calls was maintained should Route 114 be closed to through traffic. I was in contact at least twice that day with each one of the 3 fire chiefs, or with the 2 fire chiefs. I was assured that there were no issues in Alma. I had checked with Councillor Arrow, but I was in contact with the other 2. Should Route 114 be closed at Grey Brook, we had everything covered that Riverside Albert would respond right up to and including that side of Grey Brook, and Hillsborough would respond all the way as normal for the remainder of the community. So that's all I have in relation to that. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me on that particular aspect of it. Overall, I would agree with Councillor Coates' assessment that things went fairly well. If I could say, we learn every time we do these, and hats off to Linda for getting things going. And anyway, there'll be a motion later on to appoint our CAO as our Director of Municipal Emergency Measures Organization. Lastly, residents should now be in receipt of their property tax bills for 2024. The amounts included on the notices include the amount of the assessed value of their property, the local tax rate applied to the assessed value by the local government, a provincial tax amount, as well as a cost of assessment. There are likely many questions about the increases in cost for some and the overall components of the budget. For this reason, we have scheduled a number of presentations in various wards of the community to explain the budgets to residents. These will be held on March 11th at 6 p.m. at the Kiwanis Center for residents of Ward 3 and 4, on March 13th at 6 p.m. at the Big Dreams Club in Lower Coverdale for residents of Ward 5 and 6, on March 21st at 6 p.m. at the Dawson Baptist Church in Dawson Settlement for residents of Ward 5, on March 25th at 6 p.m. for the Alma Activity Center for residents of Ward 1, and lastly, on March 27th at 6 p.m. at the Riverside Albert Rec Center for residents of Ward 2. Details about the general operating and utility budgets will be presented, as well as the details of the increases and where tax dollars are being spent. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes, followed by questions from the public. If you cannot attend, and this is a message to the public, if you cannot attend the presentation in your specific location, you can attend at any location and get the same information. The information will be the same. The numbers for your particular award will be shown at all presentations, so it'll be very transparent. I wanted to make sure that information is provided. The dates for the locations are on our website. They're also been shared on social media. We looked at the possibility of having a mail out, but it's essentially cost prohibitive. Not that there's probably not a need for a mail out at some point, but you know, we need to try to get as much information out as possible. So getting those posters out at various locations where people stop and they do their business every day. And in some cases, putting them on community mailboxes, even though Canada Post probably doesn't like that idea. We're going to try to do as best we possibly can. And if there are any questions that follow up from it, then we need to respond to those. And I urge councillors to attend as many of the information sessions as you possibly can. Okay, that's it on the budget. Any questions there? No? All right. Item number 11. Now we're getting to the notices of motion and resolutions. So I do have, the resolutions were provided to members of council, and I suggested some folks would read the motions if they possibly can. So item number 11A is the adoption of the 2022 Alma audited financial statements. The draft audited financial statements for the former village of Alma for 2022 were reviewed by council on January 25th and require a motion to adopt them in their final version. So I believe Councillor Arrow, if you would please.
Yes, and recorder take note, I made a minor adjustment. So I move that the council of the village of Fundy, Albert accept the not draft, accept the 2022 audited consolidated financial statements for the former incorporated village of Alma as prepared and presented by Donna L. Floyd, Chartered Professional Accountant, Professional Corps.
So moved by Councillor Arrow. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Coates. Any questions on the motion?
Just to be clear there, that as you mentioned, Mayor, the first time we saw those, they were clearly marked as draft. There were some minor adjustments that required that, and what were presented in the package is no longer draft.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, the motion's carried. Agenda item 11B, a motion to allocate the remaining Canada Community Building Fund 2019 to 2023. A motion is required to allocate an unallocated amount of $5,514 to the 5-year capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund 2019 to 2023. We've Councillor Land.
It's 4,540, sorry.
4,500.
You said 5.
Oh,
Anyway.
sorry, $4,514. Sorry.
Whereas the council of the village of Fundy Albert approved document titled Fundy Albert 5-year capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund 2019 to 2023 during a regular meeting of council on December 5th, 2023. And whereas review by Canada Community Building Fund identified an omission in the amount of $4,514 to the village of Fundy Albert submission. And whereas Canada Community Building Fund requires a reassignment of $4,514 to a current project or new project, be it resolved that the amount of $4,514 be assigned to a new project titled Alma Gazebo Update, and that the document titled Fundy Albert 5-year capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund 2019 to 2023 be amended accordingly.
So moved by Councillor Land. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Arrow. Councillor Land, did you have any questions or?
I do. This money, where was it? Has it been spent, not spent? Where, can you give me some background on it, please?
I cannot give you a whole lot of background. It was from pre-amalgamation, so the assumption is the money was spent on something else, not on what the grant was provided for. So now the grant people are coming back saying, okay, you need to apply that to what we gave you the money for, which is why we want to allocate it to the gazebo.
Where would the money come from?
Comes from our, it would have to come from our budget.
From the general budget. So it's gonna be a cost, it's gonna be a shared cost thing.
It will, yeah.
Right. I'm a little concerned with that, where this money was already spent previous to amalgamation. I don't think it should be a shared cost. I do believe Alma has money in their reserves that possibly would be taken out for that. And also, I will add, as far as the gazebo goes, it is in rough shape. I would suggest maybe tear it down and take that whole site, make it grass with benches, there's trees there. The long grass there is no benefit to the public hanging out there or whatever, because there's no space left there. It's only got a walkway to the center of it, no volume of people be there. So if it was made just grass and we can mow it, put a park bench or two there, I think it would serve more of a duty to the tourists than what it is now. So I'm against taking this money from the general operating for Fundy Albert. It was something that preview was done and the money was spent elsewhere. So I just think it should come up back as well.
Councilor Arrow, any comments?
Well, I'm not sure where that leaves us. That with. Do we know whether this is actually, this money is in some other separate fund, is it not?
It typically is. I don't know enough about the previous, the former Village of Alma's financials to be able to comment on it, you know, like.
Well, we just approved the audited financial statement for 2022.
Right.
It's clear that that's got nothing to do with this, I don't think.
It's hard to say. It's probably reported on in the financials in terms of reserve somewhere. But I guess for my part, what I would need to know is what is the requirement? Is there a requirement, even if the funding was spent on something else? Is there a requirement for us to reallocate funding and take it out of the general operating budget?
So.
Is there
Question.
an obligation for us to do that?
Sorry, can I ask a question? So I think from the recommendation here, it says we've already put the gazebo repairs in the budget for 2024, I believe.
I believe that to be true as well.
And the recommendation is to release those monies from the budget that we've already budgeted for the gazebo and put it back to this program.
I can't answer your question because I don't know enough about it.
That's what the recommendation is.
That we take it from the
The
gazebo budget?
recommendation is to create a new project with the CCBF,
Right.
Canada Community Building Fund, for an update to the Alma gazebo and release those funds from the project that we've already approved in the 2024 budget. So that's telling me that's the recommendation, is to release the money that we've already put in the 2024 budget for the gazebo, to release it back to this fund.
But if the money was spent last year before amalgamation, why is all of Fundy Albert now paying for that bill?
Well, technically, we're all one now,
But we weren't then.
but whatever
That's all.
yes.
We had this go around a while ago.
Just one at a time, please.
Yeah.
Okay, one at a time. Just Councillor Elderkin, you're suggesting that it's to take it out of the 2024 budget, but I don't see anywhere in that motion where it says to take it from the 2024.
No, not in the motion. I'm reading the recommendation
Okay,
that came from the treasurer, I believe.
okay.
That came
Sure.
from the treasurer. So that's how I read it. But no, it's not part of the motion, but that's how I read where this money was coming from.
Okay. And so there was money, and so Councillor Elderkin is correct then, Councillor Land, that there's money in the budget for that, and it's just to allocate, to release the funding from the money that council had approved for the gazebo to assign it to the Canada Community Building Fund. So there's no issues there. I don't believe.
Understood, but also if the money was spent previous to amalgamation,
We've already had these conversations before.
and we're back to the same thing we had before, Mr. Mayor. This happened once before, earlier on in the year,
I understand.
and I'm just stating my case.
Okay.
I've had people ask questions to me about this, and that's why I'm putting it on the
All
table.
right.
I want clarification. I'm sorry.
So you would vote no?
I would be
Councillor
against
Arrow?
this.
Pardon me?
I would be against this.
Okay, Councillor Arrow. Councillor Jonah, what are your thoughts?
I too have concerns with, pre-amalgamation money and then it's all coming out of everybody's coffers. I know it's not a lot of money. But we have had these conversations before and I would be against this as well.
Okay. Councillor Coates.
I think you've approved it, I would be for it.
Okay, Councillor Elderkin.
With it being noted that we've already budgeted for it, I would support this process. But because we're not taking money out that's unbudgeted from something else. If the money's budgeted for the gazebo, we're just transferring it to a different fund. That's.
Okay. And my perspective, I'll weigh in because I have to. That I would be of the same view that Councillor Elderkin is that if the money is in the 2024 budget as approved by council, then that funding is really only going to be, it's just going to allow us to spend less out of the 2024 budget on the Alma gazebo project. So for that reason, I would vote for, but it is a tie. Two against and 4 in favor. So any other questions or comments?
The only other comment or question I would ask, if whoever made the motion, if they would be comfortable to put that they release those funds from the project approved in our 2024 budget. I don't see that in the motion.
Well, that would have to be approved by Councillor Land and he's the one that made the motion. And I'm sensing no. So, the motion. So we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
And aye. Opposed? Opposed, noted that Councillor Jonah and Councillor Land voted against, so the motion is adopted. Item number C, 11C, is a motion to allocate Canada Community Building Fund 2023-2024 top-up of funds. The motion is required to reassign $24,632 of Canada Community Building Fund funding to a new project as a previous submission to install a generator at a location in Lower Coverdale was not approved. Was it that was going to, Councillor Jonah, if you would read that, please?
Whereas Canada Community Building Fund allocated a top up of $143,696 for 2023-2024 to Fundy Albert. And whereas the original applications for Fundy Albert included Alma Activity Center electrical upgrades, White Birch Estates playground equipment, SCADA system upgrade, and a generator for the Lower Coverdale Church. And whereas the Lower Coverdale Church generator project was not approved by CCBF, be it resolved that the remaining funds of $24,632 from the Canada Revenue Community Building Fund top up for 2023-2024 be allocated to update the asset management plan for Fundy Albert.
So moved by Councillor Jonah. Is there a seconder on that motion? So seconded by Councillor Arrow. Councillor Jonah, any comments as you made the motion?
At this time.
Okay, Councillor Arrow,
My only comment is that I noticed in the report to council from Linda, our CAO, that that her and her group considered a number of options for where to assign this money. But in the end, their recommendation was for the asset management plan. And I'm supportive of that. I think that this is one of the more important things that we as the entire Fundy Albert municipality will benefit from, even though there's not that many assets in the former LSD areas, but there will be in time, and having this discipline and capacity built into our municipality from an early stage is really important. In the former municipalities, the former villages, I think all three of us were deficient in some way in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is a wise targeting of this resource.
Okay, thank
Can I
you.
just say one comment?
Yeah,
Just
go ahead,
so-
Councillor
Will
Jonas.
this not be used for, the upgrades to the RCMP station on 61 Academy Street?
No, unfortunately can't be used for them. That was an option that we looked at. It
Okay.
can't be used for the municipal offices. We were looking at the library upgrades because there was a request in for that, and we'd have to be really careful. Some of them may be and maybe other ones not. It would depend on what category they fell under. So other options could be recreational or cultural upgrades, capital water, wastewater upgrades, or road construction are some of the other options that can be put together.
Yeah, just hit me there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Councillor Coates.
Good.
Councillor Land.
Good.
Okay, Councillor Elderkin.
No, I support that. I think it's a better management of funds that's gonna benefit all of Fundy Albert.
From my perspective, I kind of have a comment and then a question that follows that. The comment is that initially when I saw that, is that the $143,000 that came as the top up was because it originated from the gas tax fund related to the former local service districts and not the former municipalities. So the question I had was, by using that funding towards the development of an asset management plan, are we not keeping in the spirit of that, where that money had originated from? And I was informed that when you look at the asset management plan, there are many pieces, there are many assets that are shared costs. And so they would be such as the arena, such as any of the recreational facilities that we have. So in fact, that is covered up. So my concerns were allayed when I heard that. The second question I have is, we're talking about $24,632, but in the council report form, I believe it refers to a cost of $35,000 for the asset management plan.
It could even be more than that. So it was.
So toward that, okay,
Yeah.
not that, that's
It
all my
will cover
question.
it,
I'm not,
yeah.
I'm not questioning whether we should do that or not. It's just that
Yes,
it's not going to
gonna
finish
cover
it up.
No.
No. Okay, perfect. So any other questions or discussion?
Just one, if you don't mind. Do we know who's gonna do the asset management one?
No,
Okay, that's to be.
that will be, that will be a conversation later. Again, this is putting money, we may not even be able to do that this year. We have to take a look at it. But at least we can reserve that money and put it towards it and maybe have a budget conversation later in the year if we can't do it this year.
Thank you, man.
But the important thing is that has to be done by March 8th.
Mhm.
So there is a deadline at that.
And that is my fault. I apologize for that. That
No.
was something that passed by me. So we would normally not request you to make a decision on such short notice. So that's apologies on my part.
That's perfectly fine. All right. So on the question, all in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 11D. A motion of council is required to formalize a decision of council as it relates to a public complaint. Councilor Coates, I believe you had that.
In the matter of a public complaint received by the council village of Fundy Albert on January 31st, 2024, in accordance with the bylaw of 2022-02, a code of conduct by law for the council of Fundy Albert. Be it resolved that the sanction imposed by council on Councillor Jeff Land is a letter of apology be issued by Councilor Land to the party named in the complaint. Be it resolved that all members of council will read and acknowledge and have read the contents of bylaw 2022-02 referred to herein with the clerk of the village of Fundy, Alberta.
So moved by Councillor Coates. Is there a seconder on that motion? So seconded by Councillor Coates. Any discussion on the motion?
It's seconded by me.
Yes, second.
Oh, sorry, by Councillor Arrow, sorry. Moved by Councillor Coates, seconded by Councillor Arrow. Losing track here. All right, any discussion on the motion?
Acknowledge already that I have read the bylaw.
Then you, once the motion's adopted, you can file your notice. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 11E, the CAO appointment as the Director of Municipal Emergency Measures Organization.
I move that Linda Savarone, Chief Administrator Officer of the Village of Fundy, Alberta, be appointed as the Director of the Municipal Emergency Measures Organization pursuant to Section 9B of the Emergency Measures Act, RSNB 2011 C 147.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin, seconded by Councillor Land. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, go ahead.
I realize that we need to do this.
Yes.
And so I will support this motion. The only comment that I would like to make is that I am on record, and I'll say it again, that what I believe ideally is an even better way to proceed, at least in the future, because we don't have time now. But the organizational structure for Fundy, Alberta that was provided to us by the province does include a titled position at the director level called, I think it's Director of Protective Services. So that would mean that actually under the CAO, instead of there currently being only the two directors, Director of Public Works and Director of Community Services, there was another box, Director of Protective Services, that's never been staffed, and it's not staffed currently. I think ideally that position should be staffed, if not with a full-time person, a part-time person. And this would be, in fact, what I believe the natural place where this Director of Municipal Emergency Measures Organization would be that person. But until such time as we have that, but I think we should be aiming for that, I will support this.
Thank you. Councillor Jonah, any comments? Councillor Coates?
Glad to see we got it done finally.
Councillor Elderkin?
Nothing.
Councillor Land? I guess my comment to your comments, Councillor Arrow, is while it makes sense, what you're suggesting makes sense, those boxes come with a cost.
Mhm.
And we need to be mindful of the cost to our taxpayers. We need to be doing more planning. We can have those conversations when we do our strategic planning session. The only other comment, having been the former volunteer emergency measures coordinator and working with the three former municipalities, is that the main function of the Director of Municipal Emergency Measures Organization is the ability to enter into contracts with suppliers and so on. And there is only one person that has the ability to do that, and that's the Chief Administrative Officer or clerk. So that's kind of the complicating factor. So if we were to do that, there would have to be some separation of the duties between the CAO's duties and that director, but it's not that it can't be done. I think it could be done. It's just that it could come at a pretty significant cost to the municipality. So we can have that conversation during our strategic planning session.
If it's full-time,
Yeah, correct.
not FTE, but I would advocate something less, but.
Sure. All right. So on the question, on the motion, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Congratulations.
Okay. Add it to the list.
So agenda item 11F, the proposal to grant partial billing relief to Alma water and sewer rate payers not connected to the system. I believe Councillor Error, you're gonna read that?
Right, so the lead in, a very short lead in, I can use a whereas, so I'll use a whereas.
Okay. But be mindful that
Yes,
all that you're going to say past the whereas needs to be recorded verbatim.
that's fine. So whereas I have submitted a council report form to council members.
Counselor, I'll correct you. You should not be making, you should not be directing your motions in the first person. This is a council motion. You should not be saying, I did this as part of your motion. It's
I was
inappropriate.
the one who submitted that. to
Correct. You may say that in your statement following during the debate, but it should not form part of the motion.
council. All right, well. What we'll do is we'll just start with the motion. I move
Mhm.
that under the provisions allowed for under section 27A of the Alma bylaw number 88A, that water and sewer rates for ratepayers who are not connected to the Alma water system and thus not using the system at all for any period during the calendar year 2024 be held at the 2023 rates.
So moved by Councillor Arrow. Is there a seconder on that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Elderkin. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Arrow, go ahead.
So this situation is the result of the fact that we've had significant rate increases for this year for Alma water and sewer. And in large measure, this was the result of the temporary water link to Fundy National Park for last year and for this year. And this is understood, I think, by all of the ratepayers in the community, and they're not particularly happy with this, but accept it as necessary. We have a few very strange situations in the Alma water and sewer system that there are some, it's a number in the order of two ratepayers who are actually not at all connected to the system. There is no connection. They cannot draw water. They cannot provide wastewater. The current bylaw demands, though, that for those properties, though, that are considered serviced properties, that they pay the full rate anyways. And these ratepayers that are subject to that are aware of that and do pay their fair share. They pay. However, with these large increase that we had this year, I did receive a number of complaints. Well, 2 complaints from the 2 users I'm aware of that are not connected, saying, this is too much. We're prepared to pay what we've always been paying, but this is too much of an increase for essentially nothing. It is nothing. They draw no water and provide no wastewater. So with discussions with these affected ratepayers, they're quite prepared to continue contributing to the system as required by the bylaw. And as they believe is the right thing to do. And they would be happy if it's kept at the 2023 rates until such time as the entire rate structure is being revamped, which is what's happening with our new phase 2 water exploration. Well, it's no longer water exploration, it's the water development expansion project. Includes in the $12.2 million project, a full review of how billing is going to be done. So I am supportive of this motion for the 2 affected landowners that I'm aware of. I believe that the total cost is under $1,000 for the community. It would have to be made up. The difference will have to be made up by all of the users, including these folks, but I'm looking for support on this. I think it's the right thing to do and the fair thing to do. I have heard from some of my colleagues that there's a concern that this will open a floodgate of a number of other concerns or complaints that we have heard. And my view on that is that there's no doubt that the subject of billing is very sensitive in Alma. And it's not really particularly fair as we have it right now, and the community knows we're moving towards a new billing structure that will be more fair. But these individuals here are unique compared to everyone else who's concerned about the rates. Everyone else is concerned about the rates, but are users. They are using water, more or less. There's no meters yet, but they are using water, and they are producing wastewater, more or less. This motion is addressed at people who are using nothing.
Okay, Councillor Elderton.
Yeah, I have a couple comments here. Why are they not connected? I'm assuming it's by choice.
It is my choice.
Cute. And I also believe that there are situations in the other former villages, and I can only speak for Riverside, Albert, that we have the same people that aren't connected by choice for their water and sewer. So I do believe that there is a concern that this is going to affect other communities. That's my belief. And you did have significant rates, I believe, this year. I concur with that, but I think there was an oversight that we didn't increase a small rate last year, correct? So I think that's the jump has happened all at once as opposed to the gradual returns above. And I know you mentioned in your statement, which I do sympathize with them, absolutely, but the unfair burden, I think is a hard one to assess of what is the definition of unfair burden. And I understand, could be seniors, could be a single mother. I think we're leaving it open to interpretation. And for me personally, I cannot support this.
Okay, Councillor Land, any comments?
I agree with Councillor Ehrlichman. I think it's gonna open up this very large conversation going forward. Water and sewer is gonna be expensive, John. Our rates in Hillsborough went up 20-some% for water this year. Yeah, we probably should have put it up over the years as we went along, but we didn't. It's just a fact that where we are, and it's gonna cost. I know they're not getting water, but if it's there ready for them, it's a service that we provide that has to be paid for. So, I can't support this motion, sorry.
All right, Councillor Coates.
Just one other explanation. Okay, your water line runs up the road, right? Okay, is there an off into that property?
Yes,
Who paid for that?
that would have been paid for by the municipality.
So it's into the property owner's property, right?
No, maybe I should be maybe more specific. So what it is
I'm going to allow this back and forth, but it should be more a comment in support of, or it really shouldn't be a back and forth between councilors, but I'm gonna allow it. Go ahead.
if I understand, you're looking for clarification.
Yes.
So what it is the people who have to pay, even if they're not connected, what it means is the property is serviced by the fact that there is a T valve and a standpipe. There's a valve, a connection is available for them, but they probably have not made the connection. That part is the responsibility of the landowner, and they must pay for that. So if there's no connection, or the connection is not at all open or connected, they're deemed to be not using, but they're still required to pay. And they do pay. And this motion is not about that they don't pay. They don't pay the big increase we had this year.
Anything else, Counselor? Counselor John?
I just had one question, you already answered it, there always, if it's by their choice, and it is by their choice, I can't support it. So,
So I looked at it and the questions I have is, do we know how many other, the Councillor Elderkin raised the point is, do we know how many other Fundy Albert utility ratepayers are not connected, regardless of what the costs are not connected to the water and or wastewater supply? So I would need to know the answer to that question before I would provide a definite answer. Beyond the temp water costs of the approximately $50,000 that it will cost to have a temporary water supply in the community of Alma, what are the other costs? Because I know you mentioned in your council report form there are other costs, but there's also interim financing for the phase 2 that is included in that, and everybody needs to pay that, otherwise, right? And then there's general increases in cost for both the water system and also the wastewater, because there had been some deficiencies. And so for me, there's a couple of things. One, is this precedent setting? And by agreeing to do this, are we going to open the door to other people saying, we want to be treated the same? When you provided your comment, Councillor Arrow, you mentioned that you're kind of suggesting that initially I thought it was just for 2024, but now it's almost like until such time as we've established what the rates are going to be.
The motion's for 2024.
Okay,
Right, that's.
but during your comments, you mentioned that it could go longer than that. And I really have a concern with that. The other question that I have, and I don't know the answer to the question, but it's an important one, was, are they not connected by choice? And is it a case where there's a vacant property and they're not connected by choice? Or is it a question that there is an occupied property and they're just feeding from a well and they're choosing just to pay the bare minimum?
I think we actually have one of each.
One of each. So in one case, I would say absolutely not. You need to connect to the water system and pay your fair share, regardless of whether you operate a well. They went through that in Hillsborough when they created the municipal water supply. There were a number of people on streets that actually, there were a lot of wells in the community. And if there are some people who are still on their wells, but they have to pay whatever the rate is.
Well, that's what we have here.
Yeah. What you're saying, I get what you're saying. You're saying that it's because of the significant increase. I will also comment on Councillor Land. You quoted the 25% increase for the Hillsborough water. That actual number is incorrect because, and I corrected it. I got the actual data from the treasurer. I was corrected on that. The increase in Hillsborough was actually 5%. It's not 25. The issue was that there was an error. If you recall the error when the transition facilitator had created the spreadsheet for the utility, they had based it on 711 users. There was only 592. And the next thing I would say is, unfortunately, if we were to allow this, it's not a question where the other ratepayers would carry the additional burden. The budget is set. The rates are set. We would have to reduce our expenditures by whatever costs they are. I agree, a couple $1,000 or $1,000 isn't a whole lot of money, but for me, there's a principle involved. So unless I get the answers to some of those questions, I'm not prepared to support the motion. Now, there is an opportunity for council to table the motion to get the answers to the additional questions we have prior to voting on the motion. Otherwise, we vote on the motion with the information that we have. In order to do that, there would need to be a motion to lay on the table this discussion. And lay on the table would be to a future meeting to be determined by us.
And who can lay it on the table? Does
It
have
needs to be moved seconded and voted on. If it's defeated, it goes back to the original motion. The original motion's voted on.
But it doesn't have to be the gentleman or the counselor that made the first motion. So I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until we get the information we've requested.
Okay,
I'll second.
so seconded by Counselor Coates. So moved by Counselor Alderton, seconded by Counselor Coates. Any discussion on that motion?
The only discussion I have, well, sorry, you guys get to go first, I guess, because you,
Right, the only discussion I have is that it would answer the question as to how many more are within the three former villages, of how many are not connected by choice, but are still paying the increases as we go.
Provides for better informed decision making.
Correct.
Sure.
yeah,
We'll go to Counselor Coates. He seconded it.
Um,
You okay?
okay with it.
Okay, Counselor Arrow.
well, the only thing that I don't like about this motion, it's not clear to me what's the additional information, or I don't think it's clear to the table.
How many additional ratepayers are there in the community that might benefit from this decision? Who
Well,
might try to take advantage of it?
Yeah. Well, this I find a bit odd because there's three completely separate water and sewer utilities in Fundy, Albert, each of which is governed by its own unique bylaw.
Right.
So and they're not all the same.
So, and that's fine. If you don't agree with it, you can vote against it, then it goes back to the motion and we vote on the motion that you presented.
Well, I would, as that looks like it will be defeated, I would vote to table it,
Table the motion.
to look for additional information, for which I'm not really sure what that additional information is, but we should have that itemized. What's the additional information that we're seeking that would allow us to come back?
I think we mentioned some of them here.
Okay, all right, then I'll support it.
Okay. Any other questions on that motion to table the question? Or table the matter? All in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Your nay? Your nay? And I would vote in favor of tabling the motion until we get the additional information. And from my perspective, the additional information is who else in Fundy, Albert, regardless of what water system they're on, are not connected to the system, but currently pay and
By choice.
by choice. Yeah, there are some that just absolutely refuse, but that's still by choice. Right? And, yeah.
I think by definition, it's always by choice. Otherwise, if it's not by choice, they're not actually in service property. So by definition, it's their choice.
Yeah, it depends on how the bylaws are written. But I would need some of that additional information before I would support something like that. Sure. So move. So on the question, or did we vote on that?
Yes, we
Yeah, we did. So it's been
Yeah,
supported. So it's been tabled and we'll table it at the next, we can table it for further discussion at the committee of the whole or a decision at the April 2nd council.
Very good.
Agenda item 11G, appointment of bylaw enforcement officers. This one kind of came up at the last minute. So it's a motion is required to appoint bylaw enforcement officers to enforce the provisions of Fundy Albert bylaws that continue to have effect. Councillor Elderkin, could I have you read that motion, please?
Sure. Whereas council has adopted various bylaws, and whereas council may appoint bylaw enforcement officers for the local government and determine their mandate, be it resolved that the following persons are appointed as the bylaw enforcement officers of the local government in accordance with the Local Governments Act and its regulations, the Police Act, the Community Planning Act and its regulations, and the Building Code Administration Act and its regulations. Jordan Langes, Derek Gibson, and Keith Pico. Be it also resolved that the above mentioned appointment includes all generalities as prescribed by the Act the regulations of the Act, the Police Act, and any other act and regulation of the province of New Brunswick. Be it resolved that the above mentioned appointment includes inspection documentation and enforcement services related to the enforcement of assigned bylaws by the clerk of the Village of Fundy, Albert, which may include issuing penalty notices, dialoguing with property owners or tenants, serving various documents, acting as witnesses for various court proceedings, and such other related tasks pertaining to the municipal enforcement. And that the position of the bylaw enforcement officer is employed for the preservation and maintenance of the public peace. And that the bylaw enforcement officer of the local government exercise their discretion according to the files given to them by the clerk or during patrols of the local government. And that the above mentioned appointment continues as long as the officer is an employee or is retained by the local government.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin, seconded by Councillor Land. Any discussion on that motion? Any questions on the motion? Yeah, Councillor Arrow, go ahead.
Are these three individuals, am I to understand that what's precipitated this is we've actually made the move to engage by law enforcement team,
Correct.
this maritime enforcement?
Okay.
And these are the three.
Individual.
Are these individuals, do we know whether they're trained in the unsightly premises?
Yes,
They are.
yes.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Now, having said that, the fact that only the three formerly incorporated municipalities had bylaws in place for the dangerous and unsightly provisions of the Local Governance Act, they would be limited to enforcing those provisions within the three former incorporated municipalities. As I've mentioned before at a council meeting, the dangerous and unsightly premises bylaw enforcement provisions of the Governance Act need a completely new bylaw that encompasses the entire territory of Fundy, Alberta. Until such time as that happens, they cannot enforce those provisions within the other areas of Fundy, Alberta.
So are we getting ahead of ourselves here? That, like, Linda, the discussion about the value of maritime enforcement services predates your arrival. And we had a lot of discussions about this. It's an expensive line item. And I think in the end, we all agreed that we were prepared to, and there is a large number line item in the budget, but that the focus probably initially needed to be on dangerous and unsightly premises.
Mhm.
So I don't know what direction, it talks about they're operating under the direction that the chief administrative officer or the clerk is giving them. I don't know what direction we've given them, but if we can't even do the dangerous and unsightly premises throughout Fundy, Albert until we get the bylaw redone, maybe we don't need to turn these guys on yet.
That's
Let's
already happened.
We've already turned them on.
For March, actually, the contract was just put in place for March.
Okay.
So the bylaw rewrite doesn't need to be overly complicated.
No,
but
we
it
should
still needs to be done.
Prioritize it then.
Yeah, and that's why when we had the bylaw review at our last
Yeah.
meeting, I suggested we move that one
Yeah,
closer to
which
the
was
front.
definitely part of but then there was also talk this afternoon, or this
Right.
evening about another bylaw that was gonna be more important, so we'll maybe need.
Yeah, well, this one,
the bylaw.
because there's money, substantial, this is $50,000+ if I recall,
For the
right?
year, yeah.
Yeah. So we need to get our value for that money. So we need to make, because I think we agreed as council that the focus for this bylaw enforcement for 2024 should be dangerous and unsightly premises as number one priority. Not parking tickets, for instance.
Agreed.
So we need to make sure that we're taking the steps, that we're not just gonna be wasting some money.
Right.
On this,
Unless we do this,
there's nothing.
we're spending money for nothing.
Yes, okay.
because they had no authority.
Right.
So we need to provide them the authority to do some things, correct? Any other questions on that motion? If not, all in favor of the motion as presented by Councillor Elligan, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Thank you very much. So that finishes the item number 11. Moving on to item number 12, public comments and statements. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a public comment or statement?
No, I'm just going to go to my car and turn on the heat.
Yes, sir.
How do I know, I have a problem. How do I talk to somebody about that?
Speak to.
Linda?
Yeah.
You got a map for me, man.
I do,
Anyway,
right here.
do believe, yeah, okay, perfect.
All right,
That's, what I gotta know.
okay. Any other? Yes, Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Coates, Councilor Coates, if you would look up yellow meeting, we have a draft program.
So there. All right,
And I will see Linda about getting copies made. My poor printer is overwhelmed.
I can do that as well.
yeah, yeah. Very much appreciated, Jim. All right, so that's item number 12. There are no closed item discussion items on the agenda for this evening. Next item is the adjournment, so I'll accept a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilor Lanning. So there's no seconder required. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, members of the public, for attending. And that
Apologies for the
concludes. Yeah, apologies for the heat.
Yeah, they're,
It's just information or work.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you guys just for your information,
Oh, sure.
Jim, if you want to.
Oh, thank you.
David, thanks, Laura.
Might be good.
Just help you, Pat.
No, no, it's not good. I mean, they were my darling wife.